What a genuine privilege it is for me to be standing before all of you this evening and introducing my good friend and our WX 2015 Woman of the Year, Carmen Bowser.
I stand between you and the champagne, so it's time to everybody settle down. First, I want to thank Alice, not only for those kind words, but also for everything she's done for me since that infamous day. That she's still talking to me is still shocking. I mean, she's been a mentor, an unfailing supporter, a gracious hostess on Nantucket, and a true friend. And how do I repay her for that? Let's see. I roped her into doing this introduction. I got her on the dinner committee. I recently asked her for a reference, and in a couple of minutes, I'm going to make some comments that I'm sure are going to just embarrass you. But truly, with friends like this, I mean, really, who needs enemies? But I want to thank you for everything, knowing that the debt of gratitude that I owe you goes well beyond this public announcement. I'm so very honored to be here this evening. Of course, I was initially hesitant to accept the offer from Cheryl and Paula last spring to be the Woman of the Year, partially because I'm kind of a low-profile, behind-the-scenes kind of gal, and this is definitely not one of those situations. But the other thing, it was all about the money. In the 9 years that I was the treasurer of one or the other of the WX entities, every spring, I waited with bated breath to hear the name of the honoree. The more illustrious the honoree, the more money we would raise. And as the treasurer, I was all about the money. But I knew that I was simply not in a position to be the big money draw for 2015. Well, as it turns out, I need not have been concerned. First of all, this dinner has developed a reputation as a just great industry event, and we have a roster of recurring sponsors who support the WX mission and want to be here every year. Secondly, our dinner committee, chaired by two people who would get my vote for Future Women of the Year, Cheryl Boyer and Sarah Queen, really knocked the cover off the ball. I believe that this is going to be the second largest WX fundraiser in all the years. Susan Swansea, I know that's great. I don't know where Susan Swansea is, but there is no doubt that your record, like that of Cal Ripken Jr., will never, ever be broken. But last but not least, once we got the devastating news about Pat last spring, it was immediately clear to me that a good portion of this evening should be about her on the 20th anniversary of her being the WX Woman of the Year. I'm honored to be up here on the night that we're paying tribute to one of the true legends of our business. Thank you. So I agreed to be the honoree, and immediately my mind began racing. Who would I invite? What would I wear? And most importantly, what would I say? After all, previous Women of the Year have told inspirational stories about hardships overcome and challenges met head on. But I don't have any stories like that. I grew up in a supportive household. As a young girl, I was never made to feel less than anyone else. Unlike some of my women friends in high school, it was always a given that I was going to go to college. And my personal and professional lives have been largely drama-free. Then there were other Women of the Year who made motivating speeches that were really a call to action. And there's no doubt that there are issues in front of women today that deserve attention, especially in our industry. And so I actually thought about going down that road. But when you get to this point in your career, you get a bit reflective about where you've been and how you got there, because that helps you figure out what's next. And when I look back, I realized that I didn't get here with a clear plan and on a straight road. There were a lot of ups and downs and many unpredictable, unforeseen turns. But the journey has been a good one. And with the benefit of 20/20 hindsight, I now know that there were certain tools and life lessons that got me to the place that I am today. And so that's what I want to share with you tonight. But before I go there, I want to give you a little 2-minute synopsis of how I got here. In order to do it in 2 minutes, I'm going to have to talk kind of fast, okay? Never a problem for me. I couldn't have imagined when I was a graduating senior at William Smith College that I would have ever have had a career in real estate. I was a classics major who was more concerned with Aristotle, Cicero, and Socrates than with business. So right after college, I went into an all-expenses-paid graduate program. The plan was to get a PhD in classical languages, find a university teaching position, and then spend every summer doing work in Italy and Greece. But about 5 months into that program, I woke up one day and I said, you know, I just don't want to do that for the rest of my life. So I didn't have a plan B. So I went to the want ads, and I got a job at a press clipping bureau. I didn't even know what a press clipping bureau was. But I must have done okay, because a couple of months later, the owner of the business came to me and he said, you know, there are these new things called computers, and I want to automate my business, and would you like to run that team? And I thought that was interesting because I didn't even know what a computer was. I'm sure there are some millennials in this audience who are just horrified by that comment, but I want you to know that it was in the mid-1970s and like 5% of the American public knew anything about computers at the time. But that job worked out okay, and 2 years later, we had automated the business. And at that time, the owner came to me, and the same owner, and he was a graduate of both Harvard and Harvard Business School. And he suggested that I go to Harvard Business School to get an MBA. And since he was, at the time, the largest individual contributor to Harvard, you kind of had to like my chances. So what did I do? I quit, and I took an extended vacation. I knew in my mind, in my gut, that that whole Harvard thing was just not for me. So next up, I ended up at Prudential in the bond operations group. I knew nothing about bonds, and I knew nothing about operations. But that worked out okay, too. 2 years later, the Prudential loaned me out to the New Jersey Symphony Orchestra as a part of their loaned executive program. And as you can imagine, working for a not-for-profit was a completely different experience, all the more so because the orchestra was on strike the entire time I worked there. I did not hear them play once. Following a detour to Prudential's oil and gas portfolio, which was yet another thing I knew nothing about, and then a brief stint in the corporate bond area, I eventually transferred to the commercial mortgage group and realized that I'd found my home. But that wasn't the end of the long and winding road. I moved from New Jersey to New York to LA. At age 39, I took a year off to have that junior year abroad that I never had in college, and I spent 6 months in Europe, and I played tennis for 6 months. And then I aligned myself with a company on a commission basis that was experimenting with this new thing called conduits. But it was way too soon to be in that business, and so it was not surprising that that venture failed about a year later, and I was let go. But since I'd been in an earthquake that I thought was going to kill me, I happily packed up my car, drove back to New York, where I immediately got a great job at TIAA. A couple of years later, 7, 9, whatever it was, Alice, you know better than I do at this point, I returned to Prudential, and then finally, although it may not seem like a huge step, I made what was really one of the biggest moves in my career by moving to Capital One in 2008. Real estate is real estate, but you'd be surprised how different banking is from the insurance company pension fund model, especially after all of that regulatory drama after the Great Recession. I do want to take the opportunity right now to thank Rick Lyon at Capital One, who's the head of the real estate program at Capital One, for agreeing to be a platinum sponsor this evening. Under Rick's guidance, the real estate team at Capital One went through a major transformation when I was there, and there's a lot of which we can be proud. And I think the future of that organization is very exciting. But I also want to say that there's a little bit of a wow factor going on here for me tonight, because Capital One didn't just bring their A-team to this dinner. The A-team would be those of you who service our clients or your clients in the New York area. At the table tonight, we have Mike Slocum, who was a former real estate guy, commercial real estate guy, but is now the head of the entire commercial bank at Capital One and a member of the Capital One Executive Committee, and Suzanne Hammett, who is the chief credit officer for the entire bank. So, you know, I'm pretty wowed by that, I gotta tell you. So, thank you all for being here. So anyway, today I find myself between Capital One and the next thing, TBD. As I look back, a quote from one of my favorite rock bands, the Grateful Dead, comes to mind. Lately, it occurs to me what a long, strange trip it's been. But my journey has been interesting, rewarding, and very enjoyable. I learned a great deal from each one of those stops and detours along the way. But of course, the most important lesson is that none of us can do what we do alone. People are an essential ingredient to our collective success in our work. We can only achieve our goals when we work in concert and in partnership. I have had the great fortune to have worked with some fabulous people who are similarly committed to doing the best jobs they can do in support of our industry. And I want to share tonight's honor with all of those people, the men and the women, who've been a special part of my life personally and professionally throughout my career. I wouldn't be here without them. But this being a WX event, it is especially appropriate for me to recognize some of the women who have mentored and supported me along the way. It is not an exaggeration to say that I have stood on the shoulders of giants to get where I am today. First, I want to recognize my mother, Bernice Bowser. Now, in her case, we're talking about a metaphorical giant because she is undeniably vertically challenged. But her impact has been huge. She was both a successful parent and a successful working woman. And she didn't just work, she worked hard. Somehow, she also found the time to go to college at night, eventually graduating summa cum laude. And she surrounded herself with this group of strong, funny, independent, and yes, loud women, all of whom had an impact on the person that I turned out to be. She was a great role model. I'm proud of her accomplishments. I'm very appreciative for the environment that you gave me to grow up in, and I'm very thankful that you could be here tonight. So thank you. Now, it may come as a surprise that 6 of my 10 bosses, covering 18 of my 30 years in real estate, were women. They were all memorable role models. They were smart, professional, poised, and not the least bit reluctant to give me constructive criticism. I'd like to think that their words were not in vain and that there were some positive results. There were certainly no hard feelings. Some of those women are still my friends, and 3 of them are actually here tonight, all actually sitting at the same table. But of all those women, I do want to single out Alice. This is your time, Alice. This is my payback. We all know that Alice is capable, energetic, and brilliant about our business. She has an incredible thirst for learning new things, and she was the driving force in getting TIA to make investments outside of the United States and to make investments in private equity funds. She commands immense respect in our business. That said, what I remember most about working for Alice was her focus on people. She cared deeply about the development of each of our team members, and she cared about my development as well. What I learned from her in that regard really helped me after I left TIAA when it came to successful team building. So again, Alice, thank you for everything. And of course, I, along with every woman in this room, owes a debt of gratitude to Pat Goldstein, a true giant in our industry. She was smart, she was tough, she had a bigger-than-life personality. And from the moment she demanded that analyst position at Citibank, she was working towards making the commercial real estate business open to all women. And as you just heard, she was committed to mentoring women in our business. She helped me when I became a banker. Those of us who are privileged to be here tonight have benefited from Pat's dedication, determination, and hard work. We all owe her an enormous debt of gratitude. And miss her. We really do. So even the people in the 25 to 30 bright, ambitious, and capable young women in the audience tonight, all of whom have received scholarships, also owe that debt of gratitude to Pat. These young women represent the future of the commercial real estate industry. Two of them, Lauren Sanders and Lauren Richter, received WX scholarships named in my honor. I've enjoyed getting to know them. We've chatted, we've had drinks, we've talked about their careers. They know I'm here for them when and if they need an objective opinion or if they just need a sounding board. And most of the experienced, wiser women in the room, that would be the WX members, will do the same. It's fulfilling, that's to fulfill part of the WX mission. And while I certainly haven't cornered the market on that wisdom, I am the one who gets the honor to stand in front of you tonight. So I'd like to take a few minutes and share some thoughts about what worked for me. And while some of these points may seem like truisms, I am convinced that these are the tools that allowed me to be successful and happy in my career and life. First, be open to the unexpected. As the famed philosopher Yogi Berra once said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. For me, the most energizing and exciting times of my life have been the unplanned, spontaneous, and accidental moments that led to new opportunities and new experiences. Sometimes those moments came after I made sudden and surprising decisions, like dropping out of my PhD program. And sometimes those moments came when things happened to me, like when I got laid off, which has happened to me a surprising number of times. But whatever happened, the next thing always turned out to be exciting and better. Each was an opportunity to learn new things and to meet new people. Careers are a bit like vacations. When they're too structured or overplanned, you run the risk of missing out on those glorious detours that make the journey worthwhile. Now, I know some people will question some of my decisions, like walking away from the Harvard Business School opportunity. But other than buying a condo at the top of the market in LA, I have no regrets. I made the decisions that were right for me. I now know that the conventional or obvious path to success isn't always the right path, and it certainly isn't the only path. And importantly, you have to remember that each person has to have their definition of what success looks like for them. Second, and related to the last point, always remember that with failure comes opportunity, or perhaps sometimes failure is an opportunity. The conduit venture didn't succeed for me and I was let go. And I was let go again in 2008 when the market tanked. Now, some people would look at that as failures, but I don't. To me, both presented opportunities to do new things. Had I not been let go from the conduit, I would never have ended up at TIAA. And TIAA was a place where I made some great client relationships, I made some lifelong friends, and I was introduced to new business opportunities. And if I hadn't left Peru in 2008, I would never had the opportunity to go to Capital One. Becoming a banker was a new and very different experience. And although I had to get over that whole Visigoth advertising campaign, which I just never liked and I never thought was particularly women-friendly, working at Capital One actually turned out to be one of my all-time favorite jobs. Third point, work hard and play harder. My parents were hard workers. My father worked 7 days a week, and my mother worked 6 days a week to provide for our family. Early on, they instilled a sense of a strong work ethic in my brother and me, and excellence was expected. As anyone who's ever worked with me would tell you, I was a workhorse for most of my career. I often put in long hours, and I was never afraid to roll up my sleeves. I put in more nights and weekends than I care to remember. But I honestly have few regrets. I always took pride in working hard, moving toward a goal, and getting the job done. I got a great sense of accomplishment from my work. That said, I always made the most of my time off. It's not always easy to achieve balance, and sometimes it's not even possible. But while there were times when I worked nonstop, there were other times when I played just as hard. I don't feel like I missed a thing. Life is unpredictable. Work hard, but play harder. Next lesson, confidence counts. Whether you're at a job interview or in a client presentation, people can smell fear. That's why it's critical to make a conscious choice to see challenges as opportunities. Looking back over my life, and knowing that there was no one to take care of me besides me, myself, and I, there were many times when I had good reason to be afraid. But I was fortunate to have grown up with plenty of positive female role models who taught me that I had everything I needed to succeed. Whenever I was between jobs, I never doubted my value or my ability to land on my feet. I never hesitated to try something new. When you have a strong sense of self and you believe in what you have to offer, it anchors you. It provides equilibrium and a sense of stability during tough times. And finally, laugh at life. Never, ever lose your sense of humor. Maya Angelou once said that she didn't trust anyone who didn't laugh. I think she had a point. Life is a contact sport. It can be joyous, it can be beautiful, it can be extraordinary. But it can also be unfair, unpredictable, random, and sometimes cruel. Life can be tough enough without you taking yourself too seriously. I learned very early on that if I couldn't maintain my perspective and laugh at myself and the absurdities of life, it would eat me alive. I've seen it happen to more than a few people over the years, and you just don't want to follow in their footsteps. So, to all the younger attendees tonight, I say this: create your own path, never stop learning, work hard, but have fun. Attitude is everything. A positive one can carry you far, and a negative one can smother your career no matter how smart you are. And last but not least, be open to those career curveballs and accidental opportunities that life will inevitably throw your way. Always remember what the late, great John Lennon said: life is what happens when you're making other plans. In closing, I do want to express my sincere appreciation to all of my friends in WX who have made this organization such a successful one. We have developed an extraordinarily influential network for women in the commercial real estate industry. Together, we've created an effective framework not only for providing financial assistance to women pursuing a career in real estate-related positions, but also in mentoring the future women executives in commercial real estate. I'm proud to be a member of WX, and I look forward to continuing my support of the organization. And I want to thank all of you in the room tonight for your support of the WX mission and for this great honor tonight. Thank you.